First of all, congratulations on your guys' new series, Billy the Kid. Got to watch a few of the episodes, or should I say, I watched the whole series. And very, very entertaining. I guess my first question for you guys though is, there's been a lot of adaptations and iterations of Billy the Kid's stories. So why tell it again? What interests you in telling this story again?
Well, I've always wanted to tell the story of Billy the Kid. I even though I grew up in the north of England, I idolized him as a boy myself, and I wasn't quite sure why. And Michael Wright gave me the opportunity to explore why I might have thought so much of him, why I idolized him, why I thought he was in some ways important. And so that was a great journey. But I think that the story also resonates in many ways today. It's a story not just of Billy; it's a story of immigration. Billy's parents were Irish, forced out by the famine, coming over to America, like so many Irish people, and then really being forced out of New York because of the poverty and the lack of jobs, and being promised opportunities and jobs in the West. But when they actually got to the West, I mean, for example, Coffeyville, the first place they went to in Kansas, had only been founded 3 years before. There were no jobs, there were no opportunities. It was a building site. And it was a very tough life. And this was at a stage when American farmers and American interests were throwing a lot of Mexicans off their land. And Billy, being the son of immigrants, identified with the dispossessed and identified with Mexicans. And I think the story of the struggle of the Mexicans and the dispossessed and the corruption of politics at the time in the West, there were these organization called the Rings, where rich white Americans took it upon themselves to buy judges and politicians and everyone else of importance and run the country themselves. And I think in that mix are many things that resonate today. The story of immigration is the story of our age too. So I thought, apart from anything else, it's a good time to retell Billy, as long as we tell it honestly and we don't recapitulate all the cliches about Billy that we've seen before.
Yeah, I would add, this version of Billy the Kid is something you've never seen before. And it's because Michael really cracks him open and goes into what made this complicated character all the things he was. And that's what's really fascinating about it. And what's, you're going to discover a lot that you've never known before or never seen before. And he was a very conflicted character. For a lot of good reasons, as Michael has said, and it's really compelling. And he's a fascinating character.
And I've always wanted to do a Western, actually. Simple as that. Simple.
I was actually gonna. Well, I was just about to ask. I mean, first, Donald, what drew you to this project? I mean, Michael has already said he's been inspired. He's always wanted to do a Billy the Kid, but what drew you? What about this project for you? Just I have to be a part of it.
Well, it was that Michael Hirst was going to do it. I mean, frankly, I've always been fascinated by Billy the Kid too, but I had never thought about doing a Billy the Kid show or movie. And when I heard Michael had a passion for this, and Michael writes everything himself. He's got a singular, fantastic, incredible kind of voice. And I thought that's really exciting. And in fact, it is. So for me, it was a real career experience to be able to work with Michael. And I learned so much from him, watching him work and do what he does in a way that if anybody, very, very few people do, was something really, felt incredibly fortunate.
Thanks, Donald.
Absolutely.
I love you too.
It's true.
So, and I guess in regards to the writing process itself, there is a lot that there's a lot of factual pieces, but a little bit also has to be fictionalized. So how did you find that perfect balance between making sure people know what the facts are of Billy the Kid, but also, being able to kind of, like I said, fictionalize a little bit? How hard was that balance?
Well, everything I do, it begins in research. So it begins in looking for authenticity, and as much truth as possible. On the other hand, I'm not doing a documentary. I'm doing a drama, and drama is different. I mean, dramas need shape. Life doesn't have shape, but drama has to have shape. So you are shaping material, and that means selecting things, shaping things, maybe excluding some things. But I'm not conscious of actually making things up. I mean, I get, you can't know what certain characters said to each other, but we know all the characters in the show are real. I mean, they were all real people. And once I have an idea about who they were and what they did, and in the case of the lead characters, often what they said, I can build from those portraits. I can build on from that. And you know what? Normally speaking, you don't have to invent the stuff, because history provides usually more than you need. And often you read something, you say, my God, I couldn't have made that up. So I'm sure people will say, well, and actually this is important. I think quite a lot of people would say, seeing some things in the show, that can't have been true, or I'm sure that didn't happen. And those are the things that are most likely to be true and actually did happen, because they're too extraordinary for me to invent. And so my process is just for the storylines and the characters to emerge from the research and to be as plausible, authentic, and as true, in inverted commas, as I can make them.
Then I think for both of you, for my final question, was there anything in the creation of this entire series that you didn't know about Billy the Kid that you both learned, that you're like, oh, I never knew that about him? Or any of the characters that you wrote about, any of them? Because like you said, they're all based on real life characters. Yeah. So
in Billy's case, more or less everything. I didn't know. I didn't know many truths about Billy. I thought he was probably a psychopath, that he was a killer. He was probably slightly unattractive because he killed so many people. And in fact, what you find out is that he was a deeply sensitive, very moral young man with a beautiful singing voice, and people loved, and he loved his mom. And all those things, everything was a delight and a surprise, and of course that made the writing much more interesting.
Yeah, I'd say the same for me. I was absolutely fascinated by what Michael was writing, and learning that he was this incredibly complex young man who was doing what he had to do to survive in a really brutal, raw world. And lost most of his family, and had this, incredible love and affection for his mother, and was really trying to figure out, what to do to keep them afloat, and kind of, got drawn into a world he really didn't plan on. And circumstances, one thing happened after another, and we watch him get drawn deeper into that, and then struggle deeply with wanting to also get out of it, which I never knew he had that desire to be legitimate, and not to live this life.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys. Like I said, I can't wait for everyone to see this series. Like it's very, very entertaining.